All right, welcome. Ryan Charles from Nitty Gritty Studios here. We are at Steiner Studios at the Brooklyn Navy Yard in Brooklyn, New York, on set for Catfight. This is a short film that I am working on as DIT, or at least in some variant of DIT, as DIT can be a slightly misunderstood job description sometimes. I'm somewhere between a guy with a massive cart, LTO tapes and raids, and a PA sitting in the corner with a laptop. When you're looking for a space for your DIT-ville, as I like to call it, you always want to make sure it hits a few criteria. For starters, it should be someplace that is completely out of the way from everywhere else. It's always great to have some kind of a sign, just a warning. Seriously, this is the lifeblood of the movie back over here on multiple hard drives. If this gets damaged or messed up, the entire thing is for kaput. So make sure people know that they are not allowed to touch, they are not allowed to even look in a lot of cases, as a lot of directors don't want their performers being able to look at their dailies in time. We have a nice big table over here, bigger than a cart, so we're not jammed all on there. We're gonna go over this equipment in a moment. But we're also lucky enough to have a very sizable television. Okay, it's not exactly a color calibrated monitor through and through, but it is on the higher end and totally usable for what we're doing here today. Unlike what most people may be aware of in the lower echelon of filmmaking, DIT is not the guy sitting over on the side downloading camera cards and backing up footage. Technically, DIT is a very specific union designation of a job, and you really deal more with corresponding with the cinematographer and the director even in certain times, working on the look of the film, building certain looks on set as a way to hone the image and quality control as you shoot. Now, of course, part of that job will be getting the footage, making sure it's backed up, and etc. But really, that would be secondary to the DIT lead, who would be dealing more with image quality. Now, I always like to recommend now at this point to have a 2-computer setup, okay? Here on the main station, we have a brand new 2018 MacBook Pro, which is killing it, okay? The speed, the durability is unbelievable on the 2018. Really, really happy with it. We were also lucky enough to get a second MacBook Pro, a little older, I believe it's a 2015 perhaps. But that's okay, it doesn't have to be as powerful because we're not gonna be utilizing this for raw processing, as you'll see in a few moments. Now, if you swing over here behind this laptop, you'll see the real reason why we have it out here. This is for your on-set colorist, as we are calling today. It's always nice to have 2 people, one person focusing solely on making sure the media is being backed up properly, and one person focusing on the look of the film. We have this great Blackmagic Thunderbolt 2 shuttle that can give us a true video signal, HDMI out, into the TV over there, which when you are dealing with showing anybody color, whether it's on set, whether it's on home, you have to make sure that you're reading an actual video signal. You can't just go HDMI out of your computer. That's not gonna give you an accurate representation of what the image is actually looking like. And you're gonna have to make sure that you use a program like DaVinci Resolve that is able to send that signal out. You can't simply open it up in QuickTime and take a look at it on another monitor. Now, if we move on over down the line, you'll see the 2018 MacBook Pro only has the USB-C connectors. It has 4 of them, which is absolutely amazing. But for most people, that's gonna limit you. So that's where this little CalDigit T3 comes in. Real handy. It essentially will connect into your MacBook Pro via the Thunderbolt 3, or USB-C rather. It also has an SD card reader, which they stopped building into the MacBook Pros years ago. You've got your simple 1/4-inch audio in and out, and on the back of the hub over here, you can come around and see that you've got additional USB hubs, additional USB-C, and you have an optical audio out for 5.1 audio monitoring, as well as a mini display port out, which you can convert into an HDMI signal into another monitor. This baby is actually capable of running up to 4 4K monitors simultaneously. And the last great thing is that it itself is a charger for your computer. So you don't have to be actually plugging in another adapter and wasting another plug on that, but rather charges right through it. Now, if we continue moving over, you'll see we have one of Blackmagic's brand new eGPUs. These are built specifically in coordination with Apple for the MacBook Pros. But if we had not had this CalDigit T3 breakout box, we could have used the Blackmagic. As you'll see on the back, it also acts as a USB hub, has an HDMI output, and it will also charge your computer without having to plug in the separate adapter. Now finally, this is an 8 terabyte G-RAID for our main RAWs, and then we have a couple of Seagate Barracuda Bear drives hooked up to an OWC toaster, as they call it, for our backups. And you can't have your media without getting the media off the cards, and that's what the card readers are for. Now, we have a Sony AXSM reader over here. Over here we have the Sony X-by-S card reader. These are generally always going to come along with the camera, whatever you're shooting on. Cameras are generally going to have proprietary readers, and you may have to download additional drivers for them when you're using them. So don't be mistaken if you plug it in, it's not recognizing it. It might not be your computer, it might not be the reader, it might be that you haven't downloaded the proper driver for it. Follow with me over here because we have something really, really cool, which you generally never have, which is an editor on set actually starting to comb through the footage as it comes in. And because we're able to process the daily so quickly with top-notch equipment like this, she is able to get to work generally right away so that the director and the DP can have semi-real-time feedback with their cuts day of, or at least from the day before footage, as to whether or not they'll be able to have to get pickups the following day or even the same exact day, which we've been able to get in front of a few potential problems by being able to view these things ahead of time. So follow me right on over here and we'll see what's going on. And we have over here Faye, our trusty editor, working away on one of the cuts. Now, as I mentioned before, this is a huge fringe benefit to have an editor actually on set. This generally will not happen, but what can I say? We're that good. And Faye, it doesn't get much better than her. She's rocking it on Avid. We made Avid proxies from the Sony RAWs that we were getting from camera. And she has already spoken with the director several times today regarding specific moments that the director was concerned about, whether or not they had gotten the coverage, gotten the right shots for it. And so again, just a really, really great thing to have. All right, so we're back in the DIT station, and we have just gotten 2 separate cards, okay? Now, they're shooting on the Sony f5.5, and so in that case, they actually have 2 different card slots on that camera, one for your Sony RAWs and one for your in-camera proxies. So, just to take you guys through the exact process that we've been doing, let's start just with computer number 2, okay? This is the secondary coloring proxy computer, you might say. I'm gonna swing around over here and take the front seat. So you take your S/S card and you literally just slide it right in. Now, like I said, that might be a different card, different format, depending on what camera you are shooting. Now, as far as programs go, generally you're going to be using something like DaVinci Resolve. There are higher end, more specific DIT geared programs that people use when you are the more legit guy with the giant cart and the LTO tapes, etc. But in our case, like I said, we're really talking about the echelon of filmmaking in between the high budget stuff and the PA sitting in the corner of the laptop. And in this case, we would be using DaVinci Resolve. An incredible program. Still, the free version of it is all you need to get your DIT work done. So essentially, you plug in your card, and you're going to want to always go into here to your first media little tab. It's going to default open into your edit tab in Resolve, but you're always going to want to go back to your media. And right up over here, you'll see the clone tool. If it's already shown, you'll see it right over here in the middle. And this is essentially where you are going to be copying your footage from the card onto the computer. So basically, you click Add New Job, you tell the source, which in our case is going to be the card that has been plugged in right over here. You can see A0110. That is the current card that we're working on. You drag that onto the source. And then for destination, you literally navigate to wherever on the hard drive you are putting your proxies or your RAWs or whatever footage it happens to be.
Now, the next thing I might want to do here is just throw all those proxy clips into a single sequence. Then go over to your deliver page and simply export a single sequence of all of these proxy files in a row. This is essentially a string out for this group of clips that you can then throw on a hard drive and give to the director to take home with them to take a look at overnight. Now, in my opinion, for this one, you can just export it as a single clip rather than as individual clips because they're not going to be using this to edit from so much as just to take notes on. It's always a good idea to have some time code burnt in, though, in a case like this, so they can take notes.
All right, great. So now that we've cloned or copied our proxy footage over to this computer's hard drive, and we have loaded them into a sequence or a timeline, gone to the delivery page and spit out just a single sequence of all of the dailies of that single camera card, we are now going to switch over to the main raw computer, and we're going to take a look at processing the actual raw dailies footage from your camera shoot. All right, so we've got the raw camera card now, and we're going to go ahead and slide it into our card reader. That's the easy part. Now, most camera cards and clips on those camera cards are going to have weird names, long strings of numbers and digits. In the case of this Sony card, at least thankfully, it uniformly labels them all with these same prefixes, depending on the camera card. So A015, all of those clips would at least start with A015, where in the case of red footage, for instance, it is much more arbitrary and random than that. Now, in the case of the Sony camera here, we're going to do the same thing we did with the proxy footage. Go up over to the clone tool. All right, so now that we've gotten our raw footage cloned on over onto our main hard drive over here, the first thing we're going to do before we do any sort of additional processing is back that up. And we're not just going to back it up once, we're going to back it up twice. Now, like I mentioned, we have the two Seagate Barracuda Bear drives over here that we're going to be using for those backups. Now, in order to get the backups going, I'm not going to manually drag and drop folders from the Finder level onto that hard drive, but rather I'm going to utilize a really great program that I would like to recommend called ChronoSync.
So for those of you not familiar with ChronoSync, it's this really great program, about $50, and you can use it to automatically sync different folders from different hard drives and computers. So for instance, you go over here, create a new synchronizer task, and we'll label it Catfight Backup, let's say. And then it's really simple. You just go to choose right here for your source target. So you would select the raw footage. Why don't we just come right over here, we'll do Catfight, camera raws, 810, let's say right there. Hit select, and then you would come over here to your destination target. You click choose, and then we would go to our backup drive, and then we go there. Then right over here, backup left to right. You literally hit this button right here, and it will automatically sync this folder to that folder. Now this is really cool because what you can do is basically set up a synchronizer task to sync the main outermost raw media folder, let's say, with the raw media backup folder. But when you add more raw footage to this folder, all you have to do is open up the synchronizer, click this button again, it'll automatically be synced. It'll recognize what's new, what's missing, etc. It won't copy over things, but it will sync them with each other in the same way that cloud syncing technology works.
All right, so now that we've got our raw footage completely copied and cloned over to the main hard drive, backed up doubly to our two external backup drives. Now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take one or two raw samples from the main hard drives, and I'm gonna spit it over to the onset colorist via a external hard drive that we basically just pass back and forth all day. He's then going to take those raw clips, bring them into his computer, and start creating a more specific, more tailored look for those images based on both the in-camera proxies that had looks applied to them ahead of time, and also feedback from the director and, more importantly, the cinematographer. As I mentioned at the very beginning, DITs really are more designed to be image control quality with the DP than they are about data wrangling, which really is what in the common parlance it's become about. But make no mistake about it, DIT is digital imaging technician. You are more about the image than you are about the data. Now, as soon as our onset colorist is done creating the different looks and LUTs that he has gotten from the director and the DP, he will export it as a .cube, as a LUT format of some kind. And in our case, because we're so close together, he'll literally airdrop it right over to me. All right, so the last thing that you're going to want to do at the end of every day, or at the very even better, as camera cards are coming in, is double check them with the camera reports. Now in our case, we have moment-by-moment camera reports coming in from people on set. But in addition to this, we have script supervising notes that come at the end of every day that are being taken digitally on set. Now, I highly recommend and suggest making sure that you not only double check the raw card with the proxy card to make sure you have the same number of clips on it, then back everything up, and then triple check on your camera report that the same number of clips and takes exist here as they do on your computer. Now, if you're seeing there's a discongruity between those two things, in our case, you head right over to the second AD or the first AD and you let them walk you to set and let them know that there may be a disparity, at which point you can then get that script supervisor notes a little earlier than you might have to triple check and make sure that it wasn't just a clerical error. That's about all we have for you today. A quick little walkthrough rundown of what it takes to be a DIT on an indie film set and what exactly work that entails. Hopefully I have illuminated some things that you might not have been aware of ahead of time. But if you have any questions, comments, feedback regarding anything that I've been discussing here, I would love to hear from you down below in the comments, or feel free to shoot me a message. You can head over to nittygrittystudios.com and do it from there.